Ingredients for the croissant dough: 500 grams French type 55 flour or unbleached all-purpose flour, plain flour, extra for dusting. 140 grams water. 140 grams whole milk, you can take it straight from the fridge. 55 grams sugar. 40 grams soft unsalted butter. 11 grams instant yeast. 12 grams salt. Other ingredients. Makes 15. 280 grams cold unsalted butter for laminating. 1 egg plus 1 teaspoon water for the egg wash. First-time croissant baker? Choose a cold day with a room temperature below 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. This way you will have more time for the whole process and less chance of your precious butter being absorbed by the dough. The key is to keep the butter solid between the layers of dough. This is what gives the croissant its flaky layers. Day 1. Making the croissant dough. We usually do this part in the evening. Combine the dough ingredients and knead for 3 minutes, at low to medium speed, until the dough comes together and you've reached the stage of low to moderate gluten development. You do not want too much gluten development because you will struggle with the dough fighting back during laminating. Shape the dough like a disc, not a ball, before you refrigerate it, so it will be easier to roll it into a square shape the following day. Place the disc on a plate, cover with cling film and leave in the fridge overnight. Classic French croissant recipe, dough. 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 IMG_9252. Day 2. Laminating the dough. Cut the cold butter, directly from the fridge, lengthwise into 1.25 cm thick slabs. Arrange the pieces of butter on waxed paper to form a square of about 15 cm by 15 cm. Cover the butter with another layer of waxed paper and with a rolling pin pound butter until it's about 19 cm by 19 cm. Trim, straighten the edges of the butter and put the trimmings on top of the square. Now pound lightly until you have a final square of 17 cm by 17 cm. Wrap in paper and refrigerate the butter slab until needed. Use just enough flour on your work surface to prevent the dough from sticking. However, keep the amount to a minimum, otherwise too much flour will be incorporated between the layers and this will show in the end result. Classic French croissant recipe, laminating. 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 Take the dough out of the fridge. With a rolling pin, roll out the dough disc into a 26 cm by 26 cm square. Try to get the square as perfect as possible and with an even thickness. Get the slab of butter from the fridge. Place the dough square so one of the sides of the square is facing you and place the butter slab on it with a 45-degree angle to the dough so a point of the butter square is facing you. Fold a flap of dough over the butter, so the point of the dough reaches the center of the butter. Do the same with the 3 other flaps. The edges of the dough flaps should slightly overlap to fully enclose the butter. With the palm of your hand lightly press the edges to seal the seams. IMG_9271. Now the dough with the sealed-in butter needs to be rolled out. With a lightly floured rolling pin, start rolling out, on a lightly floured dusted surface, the dough to a rectangle of 20 by 60 cm. Start rolling from the center of the dough towards the edges, and not from one side of the dough all the way to the other side. This technique helps you to keep the dough at an even thickness. You can also rotate your dough 180 degrees to keep it more even, because you tend to use more pressure when rolling away from you than towards yourself. You can use these techniques during all the rolling steps of this recipe. Aim at lengthening the dough instead of making it wider and try to keep the edges as straight as possible. Fold the dough letter style, cover with cling film and refrigerate for 30 minutes. Fold 1/3 of the dough on top of itself and then fold the other side over it. Repeat the rolling and folding 2 more times, ending up with 27 layers of butter in total, each time rolling until the dough is about 20 cm by 60 cm. After each fold you should turn the dough 90 degrees before rolling again. The open end of the dough should be towards you every time when rolling out the dough. You can see this in our croissant making video at around 3:40 minutes. After the second turn, again give it a 30-minute rest in the fridge. After the third turn you leave the dough in the fridge overnight until day 3, the actual croissant making day. Sometimes the dough will resist to get any longer than, for example, 45 centimeters. Stop rolling and pressing the dough, it will only hurt your layers. At any stage when the rolling of the dough gets harder you can cover the dough and let the gluten relax for 10 to 20 minutes in the fridge before continuing. Roll out to 20 centimeters by 60 centimeters. Refrigerate 30 minutes. Rotate 90 degrees. Roll out to 20 centimeters by 60 centimeters. Refrigerate 30 minutes. Rotate 90 degrees. Roll out to 20 centimeters by 60 centimeters. Refrigerate until day 3. Rotate 90 degrees. Roll out to 20 centimeters by 110 centimeters. Also see complete timetable at bottom of page. Classic French croissant recipe, laminating. 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 Each laminating step should not take more than a few minutes. However, if, due to initial inexperience for example, it should take you longer, you can fold your dough letter style, cover it and refrigerate it for 20 minutes and continue the rolling process after this rest. It is very important the butter stays solid. IMG_9297. Day 3. Dividing the dough. Take the dough from the fridge. Lightly flour your work surface. Now very gently roll the dough into a long and narrow strip of 20 cm by 110 cm. If the dough starts to resist too much or shrink back during this process you can fold it in thirds and give it a rest in the fridge for 10 to 20 minutes before continuing. Do not fight the dough. When the dough refuses to get any longer, rest it in the fridge. It is such a shame to ruin 2 days of work. When your dough has reached its intended shape, carefully lift it a few centimeters to allow it to naturally shrink back from both sides. This way it will not shrink when you cut it. Your strip of dough should be long enough to allow you to trim the ends to make them straight and still be left with a length of about 100 centimeters. Classic French croissant recipe, rolling, dividing, and shaping. Classic French croissant recipe, rolling, dividing, and shaping. Classic French croissant recipe, dividing and shaping. Classic French croissant recipe, shaping. Classic French croissant recipe, shaping. Shaping the croissants. For the next stage you will need a tape measure and a pizza wheel. Lay a tape measure along the top of the dough. With the wheel you mark the top of the dough at 12.5 cm intervals along the length, 7 marks total. Now lay the tape measure along the bottom of the dough and make a mark at 6.25 cm. Then continue to make marks at 12.5 cm intervals from this point, 8 marks total. So the bottom and the top marks do not align with each other and form the basis for your triangles. Now make diagonal cuts starting from the top corner cutting down to the first bottom mark. Make diagonal cuts along the entire length of the dough. Then change the angle and make cuts from the other top corner to the bottom mark to create triangles. Again repeat this along the length of the dough. This way you will end up with 15 triangles and a few end pieces of dough. IMG_9308. Using your pizza wheel, make 1.5 cm long notches in the center of the short side of each dough triangle. Now very gently elongate each triangle to about 25 cm. This is often done by hand, but we have found that elongating with a rolling pin, very carefully, almost without putting pressure on the dough triangle, works better for us. You can try both methods and see what you think gives the best result. After you cut a notch in the middle of the short end of the triangle, try and roll the two wings by moving your hands outwards from the center, creating the desired shape with a thinner, longer point. Also try and roll the dough very tightly at the beginning and put enough pressure on the dough to make the layers stick together, but not so much as to damage the layers, of course. IMG_9216. Proofing and baking. Arrange the shaped croissants on baking sheets, making sure to keep enough space between them so they will not touch when proofing and baking. Combine the egg with a teaspoon of water and whisk until smooth. Give the croissants their first thin coating of egg Washington. Proof the croissants draft-free at an ideal temperature of 24 degrees Celsius to 26.5 degrees Celsius, 76 degrees Fahrenheit to 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Above that temperature there is a big chance butter will leak out. We use our small Rofco B20 stone oven as a croissant proofing cabinet by preheating it for a minute to 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. It retains this temperature for a long time because of the oven stones and isolation. The proofing should take about 2 hours. You should be able to tell if they are ready by carefully shaking the baking sheet and see if the croissants slightly wiggle. You should also be able to see the layers of dough when looking at your croissants from the side. Classic French croissant recipe. Classic French croissant recipe. Classic French croissant recipe. Classic French croissant recipe. Pain chocolate. Preheat the oven at 200 degrees Celsius, 390 degrees Fahrenheit convection or 220 degrees Celsius, 430 degrees Fahrenheit conventional oven. IMG_9670. Right before baking, give the croissants their second thin coat of egg Washington. We bake the croissants in our big convection oven for 6 minutes at 195 degrees Celsius, then lowering the temperature to 165 degrees Celsius, and bake them for another 9 minutes. Hamelman suggests baking the croissants for 18 to 20 minutes at 200 degrees Celsius, turning your oven down a notch if you think the browning goes too quickly. But you really have to learn from experience and by baking several batches what the ideal time and temperature is for your own oven. Take out of the oven, leave for a few minutes on the baking sheet, then transfer to a cooling rack. Latest way of baking, we heat up our double fan big convection oven at 200 degrees Celsius. When heated up, put the croissants in the oven and directly lower it to 175 degrees Celsius. We bake them for 10 minutes at 175 degrees Celsius. They will have a nice brown color by now, then lower the temperature to 150 degrees Celsius, and bake them for another 6 minutes. Best eaten while warm and fresh, of course. Croissant we don't eat or share within a day, we freeze. We put them in the preheated oven, 180 degrees Celsius, 355 degrees Fahrenheit, for 8 minutes straight from the freezer. Nothing wrong with that. Croissants eaten nice and warm, almost as good as the fresh ones. Almost. We use the excess dough we trimmed from the edges to make a bit odd-shaped but still very delicious pain chocolate, using our favorite Valrhona Carabe dark chocolate. The trimmed dough parts are still worth using. It would be a shame to throw them away. Croissant timetable. Times are an indication and also depend on your experience with the recipe. Try to work swift but precise and take extra fridge time if needed. Day 1, make initial dough. 21.00 hours, knead for 3 minutes and store in fridge for 12 hours. Day 2, laminate the dough. 09.00 hour, make butter slab and refrigerate till needed. 09.05 hour, roll dough disc into square. 09.10 hour, seal butter in dough. 09.15 hour, roll out to 20 cm by 60 cm and fold. Refrigerate 30 minutes. 09.50 hour, rotate 90 degrees. Roll out to 20 cm by 60 cm and fold. refrigerate 30 minutes. 10.25 hours, rotate 90 degrees. Roll out to 20 cm by 60 cm and fold. 11.00 hours, refrigerate until day 3. Day 3, dividing, shaping, proofing and baking. 09.00 hour, roll out to 20 cm by 110 cm, part 1. 09.05 hour, often needed. Take 20 minutes fridge time if length not in one go. 09.25 hour, roll out to 20 cm by 110 cm, part 2. 09.30 hour, divide and shape the croissants. 09.40 hour, first coat of egg wash. 09.45 hour, proof to perfection, indication 2 hours. 11.45 hours, second coat of egg wash. 11.50 hours, bake for 15-18 minutes. 12.10 hours, ready.